KingofPodcasts.com proudly presents The Wrestling is Real Podcast, because wrestling needs us. Welcome to the Wrestling is Real Podcast, and this is episode 576. It's on my birthday, so there you go. I got that going for me. Tonight, I begin part one of the year review of professional wrestling for 2020. It's going to be a little bit early because I do want to get started on it. There's just so much to cover in the next few weeks as we just try to go ahead and chronicle down what this year has been to the year of professional wrestling. Yeah, we're just at the end of November, but you know, besides TLC and Final Battle that is going to be happening in terms of pay-per-views next month, it doesn't hurt right now to kind of go through because there's not much to be talking about when it comes to wrestling, except for a few things of particular shows coming back. We're starting to see some returns, which is good. Things like that are good, and I can appreciate that. That's nice to have. So in terms of everything going on, I want to take a look at what's actually been happening overall in the world of wrestling when it comes to those shows we can watch on television on a regular basis. Because overall, the major companies, they've been making some directions. I really feel like overall, AEW is the one wrestling company that has gotten the most momentum. I think Impact Wrestling has definitely become a darling in wrestling, finding its way back into some credibility. They've also had some hardships and they've had some ups and downs this year as well. It's not without their own bit of controversy. The pandemic has actually affected everybody else. So when you're talking about MLW or NWA or Ring of Honor, which are greatly affected by what happened this year with the pandemic, there's only so much they were able to do, and what they were waiting on and what their capabilities were able to do during the pandemic to keep themselves going. So it's the same for NWA, which now is starting to look like it's going to make its way back on the television in some way, shape, or form on the YouTube channel. But again, NWA Power, I don't know when that's coming back or how it's coming back, but they're not ready to do power tapings yet at this point going on. So we look at what's going on with all that right there, and it's tough. It's tough to see this everything that's going on right now with the particular things that are supposed to be happening with wrestling and where we could have been going in terms of direction for all these companies. Because overall, the year 2020, a second year where WWE was under tremendous competition. Now, it might not have been perceived as much with all the other companies rolling along. The one thing that WWE had as an advantage this year, which they, could have taken advantage of, is that all these other companies were, except for AEW, which is there now, you have to say is a direct competitor of theirs. They are competing. They're within competition right now. They're within a level of competition right now with WWE. AEW is right there. Now, you're looking at the demographics. Overall numbers, no. But demographics, yes. They're getting better. And remember, Dynamite is always going up head-to-head with NXT. And nevertheless, that show has done well and has continued to keep a steady audience throughout. Now, I don't know what they're going to be doing this week, but their ratings have been pretty steady when you look across the board. AEW this year and their Dynamite show, now they have not put 1 million viewers in a while. It's been a while for them. They did pull it once back on September 7th. Or September 9th, excuse me. Otherwise, they have been pulling consistently between the 850 and 750,000 mark regularly. They have not been hitting any levels where they've been under 700,000. Now, that could be because they have been unopposed without any NBA to worry about or without any Major League Baseball or whatever. Again, there's been no sports to really consider that are going to be in the way of the programming right now. So that might be one thing that's an effect. Maybe in December when the NBA does return, that might make an effect on some of these programs. But we're going to find out what's going to happen. As for NXT being the bridge, the buffer to AEW to try to keep their ratings steady and not let them increase, well, AEW, NXT, has been suffering more as a result. And that's what their problem is. They started off pretty well, staying in the 700,000 mark all the way up to WrestleMania. And then a little bit of drop off, staying within the 600,000 to 700,000 mark all the way from WrestleMania time up until about SummerSlam time. Because then you had a little bit of, well, actually, no, in July, you got pulled around 750,000, 800,000. I think that was, I forget what that was. If it was Great American Bash, I forget. There was a particular event that happened that really, over 2 weeks that they put out, that really pushed them over the top. But again, this special events that really gets NXT the audience. But in the last few months, if you're looking at September all the way down, they have only pulled over 700,000 viewers twice. Otherwise, they've been in 600,000 level. That's it. And that is because there have been, it's just, they are in a bit of a stagnant spot. And NXT is starting to lose a little bit of the audience. It's getting an erosion. And that's not the show that they expected to have an erosion. Now, there has been a lot of promotion by NXT or by USA Network or by WWE in general. No, not necessarily. And they're kind of just sitting in a spot. You know, they don't have the star power right now on NXT like they did before, without having, you know, some of the Ring of Honor stars that have kind of carried the torch for this company for a while. So they're bringing in new stars. They're trying to do some new things here. Pat McAfee, you know, bringing on board Tony Storm, getting a heel turn tonight, having a few other things going on, putting out some matches that might not have worked so well. The blindfold match they had last week, things like that are not helping too much. And that's some of the issues they're dealing with right now. So that's the issue with AEW and NXT. But again, nevertheless, AEW has been able to continuously stay in the mix when it comes to the ratings. And they have not faltered. So, I mean, this last week was 850,000 viewers. I don't believe they had any title matches. And they had the segment with Inner Circle going to Vegas. Otherwise, what else has been the draw? I mean, they had the Debonair dinner. They had some other segments that were going on. The Elite Deletion. I mean, again, they were coming off of Full Gear. That's helped a lot. And again, they do good off of some of their pay-per-views and things like that. After All Out, you know, again, they did really good. You know, getting the follow-up on some of their shows, getting a good bump off of those shows. And they're not hitting the numbers they were before. Their numbers have been increasing. I don't know what they're doing when it comes to the delay and the D+3, D+7 numbers, how they're going to do on demand. I don't know what those numbers are, but again, TNT's happy with it. And it looks like the relationship with all the changes that were happening when it comes to Turner and Warner Media and some of the changes that were going on there. We saw Kevin Riley being let go or just leaving the company, who was a very big proponent of TNT and the Dynamite deal for AEW. Well, they still have that contract in place, and looks like Tony Khan and the team there are continuing to keep good appearances right now with the product, because obviously they're doing some of the best numbers, 18 to 49. Again, they're getting a younger audience. Remember that too. AEW consistently has a younger audience than WWE. So they're building an audience. They're growing an audience. They're actually growing it. And Impact Wrestling, I know they had a little bit of growth of audience. Also, they're taking some of the retreads of, you know, some stars that have been let go by WWE. But again, they're not the main focus. Like, just be honest here. When you're looking at what the Impact Wrestling has been doing with their product, they're keeping up with having Rich Swann as your main world champion. Su Yung holding the women's title until it got switched back over to Deonna Purrazzo, I think it was. And, you know, they're still focusing some of their stars that are definitely the focus of. And they're doing their segments. But again, they have not taken all the WWE free agents, some of the stars have been around for a long time, and done much with. So like with Heath or with Brian Myers, or, you know, the Good Brothers have been in the mix for the title run. and they're tag team champions right now. But again, it's not much more than that. It's not like they're getting a whole lot of focus on that because they're working on their own stars. Impact is definitely focusing on their own stars. Eric Young, being an original, coming back, they're now using him to go and promote Joe Doring, a new big star they're trying to bring up. Moose is important to them. They're doing with what they have. You know, they did lose the Rascals, by the way. The Rascals are now moving to, I don't know if that's going to be, I guess they're going to be NXT bound. I don't know how they're going to do over there. But again, the Rascals have been fun. I think the whole That 70s Show stoner gimmick has worked for them. I don't know what they're going to be positioned in or gimmicked as when they come to the main company. Like, they're going to be good, you know, for the work they'll get to do. But again, are they going to be kept as a team? Are they going to be split up? Like, what are they going to be used as? So I can see NXT using the Rascals and using them as a group. You could put them with Undisputed Era or Imperium or whatever the hell you want. Sure. But the Rascals, are they going to be somebody you can put to the main event? And this is what comes to my subject this week, which I think is something important. And I'm not going to get into the actual breaking bones yet, breaking down the month after month of the companies. I'll get to that in a little bit. And I'll be going through, of course, the website, wrestlingisreal.com. Of course, you want to go there. You'll find all the episodes. I'm still working on trying to get my other episodes back up. The ones that I did going back to 2012, when I first started the show. A couple of weeks, I'll actually have the 8th anniversary show coming up. We'll go ahead and celebrate that, doing the episodes here, getting up towards 600 episodes here on the program. But in the meantime, I will have that coming up. And what I want to do, too, is I'll go ahead and go back and follow up on all the episodes going back previous. But then what I also want to do is I want to kind of focus on a couple of segments and themes that are going on throughout this year in review that I thought would be very important. So we're going to get to how the year started and then moving from there, which when I go back and look at the episodes, man, first episode coming back of the year, that would have been episode 507. So at the moment, I will have already done 69 episodes this year. 70 plus, we're going to get to probably, 75, 76 before all said and done. So again, a lot of content. You definitely haven't missed me much. That's for sure. So we have a lot to go on right there and what has happened since. So we'll all talk about that coming up. But what I want to focus on is a little backstory, because I think this is where we get to do a lot of reflection here on the program. I want to talk about, and this might take another week, and maybe I'll do more of this next week based on how we do, because I only want to do an hour's worth, keep it easy and absorbable for you guys. So here's what I'm coming from. Talent development. Now, as you know many times on this program, I've talked about how there have been really stars that they've had on the level of stardom that they need the company to have, the barrier of the current stars that they've had, if they were able to go and bring back to do some events of the top stars, that the stars they have now within their roster now as we speak, they have to be able to reach the level of John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Batista, and The Undertaker. At this moment, and I'm not talking about the women because the women's a different story, but on the men's side, okay, because I don't think the women have the issue. I think there's a number of stars they do have that have done well as a result of the developmental territory. I think part of it is because I think the women that come onto the roster here, I don't know if they're just quick learners or they're just better at just being able to adapt and move themselves forward, or it's just that the company and the performance center, they do better working with the women than they do the men. And I think there's just something about that. I think there's something where they feel like they could do something more and something different with the women as opposed to what they could do with the men. And I'm not sure what to think about that. But I feel like that's what's going on. I don't know if the training's just much better over there on the women's side, but again, there's a lot of good stars on the NXT side they can bring up, and they got a chance to go make it somewhere. So in NXT, you look at the main roster. I mean, you can see Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax, and Lacey Evans, and Dana Brooke, And there's others that they've brought on that, have made their way up. Lana and then Mandy Rose actually just came straight up, but was part of the Tough Enough, right? And same thing with Sonya Deville. There are some stars that are making their way up. And again, we'll wait when Sonya Deville comes back. At some point, I'm guessing that she's going to be brought back. I'm guessing sometime after that's the start of the year, 2021. And then you look at Sasha Banks and Bayley and Asuka. Like, there's a lot of star power on that women's roster. But the women's roster, they're not the biggest money makers. And that's not a shot at them. That's just what it is. And part of it is there's a reason that they need to go and kind of figure out where I talked about last week or the week before about influencer marketing, how they need to be able to take advantage of the women on the roster being influencers and be able to go ahead and find a different way to appeal and promote to the younger audience. Because for what it's worth, that is where WWE has a strength. If there is a significant strength they have, it's the women. Because they have been able to get some of the best women around on their roster. Okay, there's not a question there. I mean, even sitting right now, waiting to make the call up, when you have Toni Storm and Rhea Ripley and Mercedes Martinez and a bunch of others. Like, there are stars that are waiting on the wings to make their way up. So there's going to be some significant difference. Again, they've worked on Shayna Baszler right now, and, they're just not doing right by her. I don't know how you screw up Shayna Baszler, but they're kind of doing it right now. She's not insignificant, but then on the men's side, it's just making mistakes altogether. And this is where it comes down to this. In talent development, it's nothing. You cannot say enough about the fact that this company is because of the nepotism factor they have. If a star did not come in and make their way up the roster through the chain of custody here in WWE and just work their way up naturally and just wait their turn instead of going somewhere else or being part of another company of which their stardom or some kind of a revelry that they had would have been from somebody else and not from them. Remember, it's always been, if it's not WWE made, they're not going to be, main event bound. Not necessarily right away. There are anomalies to the mix. So that's why there are some stars that will take their way in and bring themselves up. But again, we're seeing the same thing. What we're seeing right now are a number of stars that started from the ranks in the developmental territories, in WWE, WWF, in its previous developmental territories prior to their performance center, right? And we're not talking about stars from the 2010s. We're talking about stars from the 2000s, okay? This is what's understood. Because, number one, they had a very bare bones raw system of development. And we can go back as far as you want about all the different areas they came from, which is what I do want to go and talk about real quick. Because the developmental territories for this company, of which they did not try to go and take so much, taking stars from, say, the other companies and taking free agents so much. But they did do things where they would have some feeder leagues, but for the most part, they had their own set of stars where they wouldn't got their stars from. We want to focus on 4. From 2000 to 2008, you have Ohio Valley Wrestling. 2005 to 2007, Deep South Wrestling. Then Florida Championship Wrestling, Steve Keirn's outfit in Tampa. And then NXT from 2012 to the present. So now, in this story, I want to bring up the fact of this. So with Ohio Valley Wrestling, thanks to the entrusting of Jim Cornette being part of the territory at the time, they decided to go ahead and, go to go and work with someone that they're very familiar with in the wrestling business that decided to go ahead and let's get and put themselves together, and let's go ahead and start putting some matches together, and let's get some stars brought together that can make it over to the main roster, because by this point, they had already gone through the crux of having a number of stars brought in that they were able to go and build off of. And to the credit of the company, they were trying to think of the future because they saw everything was going so well. Attitude Era was already in the spot. But again, 2000, creating this relationship, some forward-thinking people, namely Jim Cornette, to a credit to somewhat of a case, Developmental and others, the idea of having this developmental system ready to bring new stars up to the forefront. They saw what was going on in the late 90s. They knew that Steve Austin and The Rock and other stars were going to be looked at, and they needed to find the next crop of talent to keep that going. So it was smart to do that. Obviously, other stars had aspirations, so they had to figure out something they were going to do to keep that going on. So you have 10 stars for sure that did come out from OVW to WWE. So remember, besides the fact you had Brock Lesnar, you had Beth Phoenix, you had CM Punk, you had Batista, you had Randy Orton, John Cena, Shelton Benjamin. And at this moment, look at what we have. Shelton Benjamin, a throwback to OVW in 2000, 2001. Randy Orton, a prominent star right now, 20 years later. Keep that in mind. And this is after so many years of Shelton Benjamin being on the shelf and being a non-factor. And then look he went to other organizations and all, and he went along with Charlie Haas and moved along and worked in other places. But again, you look at what happened there. And then Brock Lesnar goes away, comes back. Batista, had a long run, and he did for a good while. He was one of the top dogs in the company. And those were some of the younger stars being put up and positioned against the older stars, the stars that were already from the Attitude Era. And you look at the significant matches some of these stars had to build themselves up. Randy Orton had the feud with The Undertaker and others. John Cena had his signature feud starting off with Kurt Angle. And Brock Lesnar, they just had him run through the damn roster. And CM Punk, not so much, because he decided to go Ring of Honor and went other directions. But eventually, this was the guy who was in OVW as well at that time from those wrestlers. And then eventually, CM Punk will become a big star as well because the familiarity within the system to bring them on board. That's what they decided to do. Now, what do they have since? We look at what they've done with Deep South. Among Deep South, look at the stars you had over here. Heath Miller, which is Heath Slater, who is now no longer with the company. He moved away. You have Johnny Curtis, who is Fandango. Brian Cage was part of that group. And this is around 2007 we're talking about, of Deep South. And Ray Gordy, who was a part with Jesse and Festus. Angel Williams, who we know as Angelina Love today. Austin Creed was part of that crew. That's Xavier Woods. T.J. Wilson or Tyson Kidd. Caleb Conley, who's now working in Impact Wrestling. Brooke Adams, or as remember as Brooke Tessmacher. Harry Smith, or David Hart Smith in MLW. Kofi Kingston came from Deep South Wrestling initially and then moved over into FCW territory. Remember that. And then you look at the stars that came out of FCW, which another large crop of rosters that came out of this. And if you look at what we got out of that, there were a lot of stars that got their start at FCW. So going back to a story from Bleacher Report, back in 2011, they talk about Florida Championship Wrestling. The stars that we're talking about that were really important were Drew McIntyre, the Hart Dynasty. So that was Natalya, that was David Hart Smith, and Tyson Kidd. Sheamus was also importantly from this era. And remember the members of the Nexus and the Core. So you're talking about Heath Slater. You're talking about Daniel Bryan. Which not so much Daniel Bryan because he worked with Shawn Michaels, kind of did the vetting for, or the vouching for WWE when they brought him on board. And that's kind of where that all came from there. But again, there were just so many stars that came out of FCW. Because remember, Bo Dallas also coming out of there. I don't know what happened to him. You also remember Kurt Axel. Never heard from him again either. Brett DiBiase. Never heard from him again either. Jinder Mahal, who we've not seen in a while on this company, also came from SCW. Then Byron Saxton, who did wrestle, was part of Nexus, was part of the Core. Now he's part on commentary. Percy Watson. Remember Percy Watson? A long time ago. AJ Lee, who had a run. Obviously, if she was still working today, she'd still be one of the top women stars over there in that company. But she was important in the 2010s. Richie Steamboat, Ricky's son. Never heard anything else from him. Just kind of went off the map. Seth Rollins, believe it or not, also came from FCW. And this was after he left Ring of Honor Tyler Black. So again, within the developmental territory, you had this. And then it went to NXT, and then it moved along from there. Again, other stars they had over here. Mason Ryan, which went nowhere. Derek Bateman, who became EC3. They had a number of stars that would have been really good as well when it comes to, say, Maxine in the Divas division. And then Xavier Woods was also in the SCW roster at this point as well. That's what it all was. Just the star power they had. They had stars that were able to come out of it. And you could see who they entrust upon to build on the main roster. So why is the disconnect right now with the NXT roster? Now, keep this in mind. Remember this. So Roman Reigns was already also as well part of the FCW roster as WIKI way back when, remember? And then he became Roman Reigns in the FCW realm and brought that over to NXT as they brought in the Shield. And Bray Wyatt was Husky Harris. We all know this. This is all pretty current history, right? And those are the stars that have become something of themselves in the company. They have seen some success, some main event status. Drew McIntyre came from FCW. Dolph Ziggler came from FCW. It's amazing the stars that we have now that are being looked at. And when you look at who we have left, and you just look at the draft that just did not too long ago, and you look at the names that were brought on board to try to make something of. Sometimes you just have to go through the roster and look at the background of all the stars and where they've come from. Because it really tells you a lot of which stars have made it across the brand and been able to make it to a higher level. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to do a quick run through of the Raw SmackDown rosters of what I could find based on the draft. I'm going to give a ranking from 10 being top star at the level of a John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Batista, Undertaker. I want to put who's going to be at that level, right? Even the women I'm going to put at a certain level as they're at the highest of their echelon right now. And those are bankable box office stars. Well, I'm going to go through the names, and I'm also going to remember where they come from in the mix and where they are brought into the mix when it comes to the relationship to how they were brought onto the roster and how they made it on. To my recollection, anyway. So starting off, Drew McIntyre. He goes back to FCW and was a former FCW champion. By the way, if I'm right, those shows are still on YouTube. Go look for them because they were really awesome. That show was fun to watch, much like NXT was, but I really did enjoy the FCW experience. It was fun. Roman Reigns. Remember, FCW into NXT Okay, Drew McIntyre right now is at an 8. 1 being the worst, jobber. 10 being main event and bankable. Drew McIntyre right now is an 8. He could be a 9 given the right feud. But I think Drew McIntyre is bankable star. But again, look at how many years you had him around to get into where he is right now. You got to think about that. Moving along, Roman Reigns, 10. At this point, he is the bankable box office star. That guy is Hollywood bound. That guy has a whole lot ahead of him. And he's in his prime. And he's doing the best work he's done ever in his career as this heel. I mean, there is no way you do not look at Roman Reigns any different. He is the most entertaining person, entertaining male superstar on that roster right now. That is a guy. If I see Roman Reigns on my TV, along with Jey Uso because of the attachment. Because here's what's happening with Roman Reigns. As you attach him to other stars, his star power spreads to them. Jey Uso is becoming a main eventer in front of our eyes. Jimmy's in the back seat now. Jey Uso is a standalone star because of Roman Reigns. It's not even Paul Heyman. Because the difference is Paul Heyman is not the mouthpiece so much for Roman Reigns. Because he's not the advocate, he's the counsel. And the best part of this is it's not where Paul Heyman has to do all the talking. No, he adds. But Roman Reigns is the draw. You could have Roman Reigns without Paul Heyman right now. That's how good he is. Looking along the roster here, okay, Asuka. She goes back to NXT, but also from Japan. This is a Triple H thing. But again, she's been brought up as high as you can bring up on the roster. She's an 8. I don't think she's bankable, super big star. Like, I mean, they're doing things with her to make her very memorable character. They've done a better job of trying to build her up and make her very important. Shinsuke Nakamura, unfortunately, has not had that kind of luxury. They've dropped the ball on him, but Asuka has been booked solid. Seth Rollins is now a 6. The Monday Night Messiah character has brought him down. When he was with the Authority, he was an 8. Seth Rollins' value has dropped. It's just his likability. He's getting Xbox heat. And the Messiah thing's a bad thing for him to be in. They need to change the gimmick up to something else. It's time to change him around. But it doesn't mean that guy cannot have good matches. We don't like the character. We do not like the booking. We don't like it. That's the problem. He has not helped Murphy, which is what you hoped would have happened. AOP's a non-factor. And I think the only reason we actually had a little bit of interest in Seth Rollins is because he was the adversary to Rey Mysterio and his family, which we started attaching to. We attached to Dominic. We attached to Aaliyah. That's the storyline. So it was inadvertently the wrong people we thought were going to be the major stars from this. Seth Rollins was just a piece in this whole puzzle, but he wasn't the draw. He wasn't the reason people watched. We just knew he was the guy who was going to get his ass beat by Rey Mysterio in the whole setup. Now, the WrestleMania storyline, they milked it dry and they did what they could with it. But, the thing with Murphy, I think the attachment of him with Aaliyah is helping Murphy come out as a star, as a face. That actually might be helping him more than the Messiah thing does. So it's a secondary help. It's not Seth Rollins that's helping them make stars. He's not. Seth Rollins needs something else. He can be rebuilt. You can make him do something else. I don't know what you do with him, but he sucks as a face. He's not good as a heel right now. I don't like this Monday Night Messiah character. I know what they're trying to do. This is the wrong gimmick for him. He needs a different gimmick badly. It's time to change him around. I don't know what you do. Take him off TV, retool him. Something else. But this right here is not working. I know it was a different change of the try of the character. We gave it a shot. I didn't like it. I haven't liked it. It just isn't working for me. Now, the Hurt Business. You're talking about 3 stars have been around 15 years plus in this company. Now, Bobby Lashley was a straight up, though he was OVW. And now he is the latest to actually make himself up here. But my thing is, why Bobby Lashley has never been moved up higher to the main event? Why Bobby Lashley is not going after Drew McIntyre now for the title? I don't understand that. And why Bobby Lashley doesn't get to be a champion now in this Hurt Business, which is a good stable. The stable's good right now. I think Cedric Alexander is getting the benefit of working with the stable, but again, they don't have any real adversaries either. Retribution has been a waste of time of a bunch of call-ups of NXT stars that have done nothing. Retribution is trash, a horrible gimmick. It could have been done better, but this is just badly done. It doesn't make any sense. They've changed it around. They've tried to retool it, but it's a worse gimmick than Aces and Eights. It's as bad as League of Nations bad. That's where we are. AJ Styles, 9. But again, he's the wrestler's wrestler. Like when you talk about, wrestling purists, the one that really love wrestling, they like the workers. This is AJ Styles. And you might say I'm a little bit wrong about this, but AJ Styles has the work like a Shawn Michaels. He really does. And a Daniel Bryan totally does. And a CM Punk for that matter. AJ Styles is just, he's always been good. And they're just noticing it now in WWE. So, I mean, for AJ Styles to make the move over to the company was a great move. And by the way, very funny to see Hornswoggle come out in AJ Styles music and get up on Impact Wrestling this week. I thought it was pretty funny. So AJ Styles is a solid 9. The guy is just, great wrestler, and he will get people to the seats. People will want to go watch AJ Styles. And he's had some very good feuds. With John Cena was a really fantastic feud. Loved it. And he's done better. I don't like the whole thing with the heavy. I don't care for that too much. But again, AJ Styles is important. And I think he was kind of held as the anchor with the Good Brothers, because I don't think those three together, where they were trying to use them, they were used badly, and it could have been done better. But again, AJ Styles, his feud with The Undertaker in just a short time, and that Boneyard match, he's significant. It's important how that match was done. He was very good. Casted a good role. So AJ Styles, love him. He's great. He's always been great. I mean, a lot of his great years in Impact Wrestling, but he is doing great work right now in WWE. He just is. There's nothing I can crap on with AJ Styles at all. I mean, to make something out of that Survivor Series gimmick, at least he was there, and at least he gave some legitimacy to that whole setup, which I gotta say. And then, when you look at how they set up the Survivor Series match where Jey Uso was the lone survivor, the one wrestler was left, and the way they were able to take it down, that's showing AJ Styles as a strong character. Be able to go and get that team to go ahead and pull through, and through adversity, they booked the way so AJ Styles looked good at the end. Sasha Banks, she's a 10. I don't care what anybody else thinks, but Sasha Banks, to me, she is the star. I mean, next to Becky Lynch, who was the star right now, Sasha Banks is the bankable star. She is the box office. Look, she's got Mandalorian now. She's going to get more work. She's in her prime. We are blessed to have Sasha Banks on our TV every week. She looks amazing. She works really well. She's just got, honestly, the time she took away where she had a lot of the animosity was put upon her, part of it, I guess, would be justified. Part of it wasn't. I do feel bad for what she went through. But I'll tell you what, she's come across here, and right now she's at the peak. Champion, she is kicking ass. She's doing really well. I like where Sasha Banks is right now. She's in a great place. She's being booked strong, and they need to continue to do that and just keep going with that. And remember, AJ Styles, coming from Impact Wrestling, coming from TNA, but he was able to go with all this experience and all his accolades. You just could not fail with him. It's like a Daniel Bryan. You cannot fail with AJ Styles. With Sasha Banks, she came from the beginning from NXT. She actually came from NXT. Not the performance NXT, but the good NXT. Early on. And she grew herself up and made the boss character in NXT, and one of the true characters that's one of the true NXT characters of the women that has stood out and has been a major success. We need more characters like Sasha Banks on the women's side. She has the total package. She is. I'm not trying to kiss ass here, not putting on her pedestal. She's just good. She's been good for a long time, and she's had a lot of good help with her. You know, she has as much a part of the Four Horsewomen as everybody else. She just does. Which, by the way, we have not had Charlotte Flair in a while. I don't know where she's going to be, but we need her back as well. Could always put her and Sasha back in the mix. Because, again, put her against Bayley, put her against, whatever. It's just good matches all around. Naomi, it's a 5. And the company has failed her. Naomi's done all of it. She's from Competition NXT. Naomi Knight, remember? She's been around. She has busted her ass. She has done everything. The neon stuff is a draw. People like the interest, like the look. And I just think with Naomi, this is where you bring her back in and the whole Jey Uso thing comes into play. I think we get her back over there and let's get that whole thing going. But Naomi needs to be brought back into the mix. I just think they should have brought her. Why isn't Naomi going after Sasha Banks? Why hasn't that ever been done? Why can't we get a feud between these two going? I don't understand why Naomi's been left out. Now, I guess injuries have been riddling her for a long time. So that might be one thing. But again, that's one thing that's got to happen. Who knows? Bianca Belair. At this point, she's a 7. There's just a lot of hype behind her right now, and it's deserved. I mean, didn't spend a whole lot of time in NXT, but that's because she just had good talent and brought her right up. So I could see where she could definitely make herself up to a spot. Not right now to the main event, not right now to the women's title, but I think you just get her kind of on the outside looking in, and you keep building her up to become a strong star. So, let her take down a number of the SmackDown women that are on that roster and just have her just tear them up. There's so much of an upside to her. And again, this is where, again, the women have a better chance of making it into a significant spot than the men do. But again, of all the stars I talked about so far, you're talking about stars that have been around for more than 5 years and up to a decade or more. Right? 2 more current ones, Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. So Nia Jax is NXT, halfway through, 2016, 2015, as Lena Fanene, I think it was. And so she was early on and worked her way up. And just her problem is just Nia Jax is a 5, and she self-destructs herself. I want to like her. I want her to be a formidable force. The size, the girth of her, the look, the Amazonian look, she's a good-looking woman. I think she does horrible promos, and she's botchy in the ring. She is the current Tamina. I don't know why she is, but I'm telling you, you look at her, you want to see her as a star. I just think she does better somewhere else. It's just not working here. I don't know why, but she should not be feeling like she does. This is a failure on the company and the developmental system. Unless she has a barrier that's holding her back. I don't know what it is. Not sure what to think. Ricochet is a 2. This guy should not be in this company. He would thrive anywhere else. He should be an X Division star in Impact, or he should be an MLW and running up the game. He should be going after the middleweight championship. Put Ricochet up against Myron Reed. Shit. What a hell of a turn that would be, huh? By the way, MLW, I did say I did like the matches they had. Brian Pillman Jr. against Myron Reed was a hell of a match. Myron Reed, unsung hero, is very good. The Injustice gimmick is very good. I actually really like it a lot. I must say, Court Bauer does a good job with all the stuff that he does with the gimmicks and things he does. And you know what? I learned a little bit how they were talking about how Kevin Von Erich was talking to his sons, Marshall and Ross, on MLW's Restart, and how Court Bauer, Kevin Von Erich explains how Court Bauer really learned a lot from Playboy Gary Hart. He learned a lot from him in those days. So I got to give credit there. And you could tell there's some of the things, the old gimmickry and the way they kind of put things together. MLW gets just done well. And with a lot of new stars. Give credit where credit's due. He's making some stars. I'm telling you, Court Bauer, David Hart Smith, I like where he's going. The way they're building him up, he is kind of like a Bret Hart type, an Owen Hart type. He's not, might not have, he just has that, he is a Hart. And you could bring him up and do, the follow-up of him being the chain of Harts and bring the Hart family in. But again, the Hart family is just such a screw-up in WWE in the first place. You couldn't really do anything now. That's unfortunate. But him in MLW, he's doing good. And I'm telling you, Jacob Fatu, man, that guy is a free agent. I don't know if MLW can hold on to this guy. But if they do, they're doing good. Because Jacob Fatu and the whole Contra Union is fantastic. I love the whole gimmick. It's great. Justice Samael, I love the whole thing. And now I like how they added Selena De La Renta as the buyer into the mix. I like the whole tie-in right there. That's actually pretty good. So there's more to be said there. And I got to watch a new episode. Haven't had a chance to watch that yet. G Uso's a 9. Again, just the rub from Roman Reigns is doing everything for him. They're main eventing him on SmackDown on a regular basis. Roman Reigns don't even have to be on their wrestling. It's just the attachment to Jey Uso. And Jey Uso is a draw. He is a main event on that show now. 9. Automatic. And just the attachment. I think the whole Samoa, the attachment right now, the family, you can just build off of that. Man, that is one thing they can be doing a lot right now. Is taking from there and just moving it up. And why Samoa Joe has not been taken off of commentary to go back out the active wrestling, I don't know. But he should be part of that storyline somewhere too. And like I said, if WWE was getting to the point of trying to go and acquire talent again, if they start getting back into that, I'm telling you, Jacob Fatu, that guy, his numbers, he could be bound to that company. It's not what I want, but I can see why they do it. I could totally see that. Mandy Rhodes is a 5. I think the rub with the Otis storyline actually helped her a bit, but again, she lacks in the wrestling part. But I mean, she's gotten better, and again, you can't help yourself when you see beauty like that on TV. You want to have like the Stacy Keibler, Trish Stratus type that's on TV. You want to have the beautiful blonde on there. So it's just the star appeal, just the beauty appeal that really goes to her. And same thing like with Kelly. You have that kind of look. You're going to just try to say, okay, let's do something with this. And then they just decided to put her and Dana Brooke together. Okay, I get it. Makes sense. Again, it's a full male chauvinist thing, but I get it. I understand why. Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio. So Rey Mysterio attaching Dominic into the mix has helped Rey Mysterio continue to be important. But again, he was a 10 at one point. But I mean, he is finishing up. But now he's around to go ahead and prop up his son. And his son Dominic is right now a 6. He is overachieving. I didn't expect him to get so far as he is right now, but Dominic Mysterio is a good young up and coming star. And the best thing for him was that Rey Mysterio, it's like family train, and Rey Mysterio has a lot of clout in that company. So Dominic is showing his spot. He is running strong with the other dogs in there, and he's doing good. Putting him against Seth Rollins and Murphy and others, he's doing just fine. So Dominic is doing really good. And the whole storyline with the Mysterios, it helps a lot. And I think Dominic is getting a lot of rub from that. So again, that's the SmackDown side. That's where it's coming from. Now, Miz and Morrison, remember, those are both tough enough guys. And Mandy Rose was also tough enough from a while back. Miz and Morrison go back to the original Tough Enough back in the 2000s. Like, what is it? Was it 2004, right? 2003? And with John Morrison, They never reached him higher than an upper mid Carter. Never looked at him as a main event. Miz could be looked at him as main event again, but again, they just don't. They never treated him as such, except for 2006, 2007, when he had Alex Riley along with his side, and he had the Money in the Bank briefcase. Well, fast forward to now, briefcase is in his hand again, but the Miz, they're not going to pull him back up to the main event. They just don't see it as such. They just don't see him as a serious character enough to be that. And that's because Miz is probably has a barrier where he can go. But again, he's an 8 to me. Because, I mean, he's been important enough that the reality show has kind of the thing. I think him and Maurice together was really, after the whole 2006 run as champion, I think him with Maurice was a great time. Again, the match they had with John Cena and Nikki Bella, that whole setup was fantastic. Again, the gimmick of just seeing him play John Cena was just funny as shit. I just loved it all. Ate it all up. Now, Kofi Kingston, he's a 9. I think with him, it's, again, he checks the boxes, right? Diversity, inclusion, all this kind of stuff. And they gave him the run as a champ. But again, well, actually, he's a little bit less than that. He's probably more in the 8s. But again, it's because they keep him as champions right now on the SmackDown side. And with him and Xavier, you keep them as a group. Kofi you don't keep as a standalone. Because the New Day group, even if you split off Big E, you split them off. And that makes sense. But I guess that's what you got to do. Kofi and Xavier, you have to put up as a 9 because together they're really good. But if you split them up, they're both like 7s. So they're significant and they're important. But, you know, they gave Kofi a main event push and gave him the belt. And I think that's really, it was a deserved push. Probably a little bit later than it needed to be, but I mean, the story they told was good. So it was good for that. And I think that's what it was. But to have him hold that belt after a while, it wasn't going to hold for long. But at least he got the belt. That's what's most important. He earned it. No doubt about it. Now, Big E, this is where you need to push him up towards the belt. And listen, I think, yeah, you got him with Sheamus and like King Corbin types and all right now. Or, you know, you've had him kind of going those routes. But with Big E, you know, yeah, they don't want to pull the trigger on him and get him up forward and move him up. But I think it is time to kind of start moving him up towards and just see what he does. In like a downtime, put him with Roman Reigns right now, or you know, with Jey Uso. Let's do something with Big E. Let's get him in as the baby face that's just going to get pounded down by the Samoans. I think this is where you bring him in right now. I think you could do something like that. But again, they need to have something to do with the King Corbins of the world and others. Now, as for, say, Dana Brooke, 5. Again, she's in the same route as, or actually, she's more like a 3. But again, a little more of a rub because I think Mandy Rose helps out Dana Brooke a lot. We already know that's how it works. Because, you know, blonde with a blonde, let's put the tag team together, might get some draw. I got that. And again, this is a younger draw on the SmackDown side. We can see that's actually happening. But again, a lot of stars they have on the SmackDown side. What you can see is they have some younger stars they're working off of. Again, Dominic Mysterio, Bianca Belair. They have some young stars they're working off of. Mandy Rose, relatively not been there for a whole long time. That's where you're seeing some of the younger stars coming from. Otis. Now, Otis goes back to the Performance Center. He's actually one of the few that's made it through. Tucker has been a non-factor, but Otis was the draw. And obviously it's because the guy's got a gut and just a lot of charisma and a lot of just fire. He just does what he will do, does what he's told. The guy is a company player. And I think what they're doing with him now is they're definitely using him more. I think, listen, when I saw Otis in the Survivor Series match along with Matt Riddle, I think there was just something where Otis just has a younger guy, got a draw. There's just something about him. Again, working class man. Yeah, good. It's the right gimmick for him. And Otis can go a long way. I think right now he's a 7. He could be an 8. But I think him with the Mandy Rose gimmick really helped him a lot. Greatly. And the whole deal with the contract holding, whatever. It's what it was. But I think Otis has a lot of upside, and that's one another. Again, the SmackDown side has some younger stars on the come up. The retreads of the Misfits are all on Raw. And you can feel that's how it is on Raw. And there's just not much they can do about it. That's what's unfortunate to them. Not sure what you go ahead and do going forward to get them somewhere, but again, that's where they are. So that's where things are right now. And then when you have going forward, you have other stars that are making the way up. Okay, let's go through a couple more quickly. Humberto Carrillo, he's a 3. They gave him a chance. He's not resonating. He is not relating to the viewers. It's just not working. This guy is a Mexican star. Put him under a mask, he would do great in AAA or CMLL. I would think so. Murphy is a 6. I think the Aaliyah storyline helps him. There's a little bit of a sympathy factor to that. Drew Gulak is a 1. I mean, just a non-factor. It's too bad. I think that guy would just do better somewhere else in another company. Kalisto is a 1. Tucker is a 1. We just got jobbers, man. Kalisto can be doing anywhere else, in the Mexican field. But again, he's on the main. He is on the main company, probably getting some paid well. So that's what goes on with that. And Angel Garza and Andrade, well, they're just non-factors as well. Angel Garza, a 3. Andrade is a 5, but I don't know, man. They really screwed the pooch with Andrade. Should have done more with him. I don't know what you do next. I don't know what you do with him next. Then among the other wrestlers you got, the Fiend Bray Wyatt. That guy, now with the Alexa Bliss addition, together as a pair, make him a 9. I like it. You basically was a saving grace to have the Sister Abigail finally get on board with Bray Wyatt. It's just that the Bray Wyatt character, what's missing with him, he's just got to have better matches. I don't know what you're going to do to get the better matches out of him, but right now it's not happening yet. So they got him and Randy Orton kind of paired up, and something's got to happen to make the Bray Wyatt character better, but he is lost right now. And giving a little bit of a bump on Raw and giving him that spotlight will help, but there's just something there. Bayley is an 8. I think the heel character's done very well, and she just does, obviously great in the ring, has embraced the heel character very well. I'm very impressed by what they did with her. And it was surprising how well she's taken on it. But she's done very well. She's embraced it. She's really good. Very good. And will help a lot of different stars as a result of that. Randy Orton is a 9. But unfortunately, there is a wall with him. Because he's also been around for so long. But again, you know what you get with Randy Orton. That's not a bad thing. But again, he's not the kind of guy at his point in his career where he's going to really elevate any younger stars. He's just not. It's kind of like almost like a Hulk Hogan kind of complex, okay? He's not going to be the kind of guy that's going to go and work with Kidman, all right? Randy Orton has the stars he's going to work with, and that's why I feel like he is. So I don't feel like we're going to see him. He's going to have trusted guys he's going to work with, and he has the guys he wants to work with. That's how I just feel about it. Street Profits is a 6. I wish they weren't so jokey. I wish they didn't make them kind of like so silly sometimes. Viking Raiders, what a mess they did with them, right? But keep those two together. I think you just need to evolve the Street Profits and make them something more. But, with nothing to give up on. Charlotte Flair is a 9. I don't know why she's been away for so long, but there's just something there. Manny Andrade and Charlotte bring their real life romance on screen, and that's where they work with something off of that. I don't know. I don't know what you do. Braun Strowman's an 8, and this another guy. He is like Nia Jax. The potential is completely there, but it's just not completely there. I mean, his character's good, but again, he is a Big Show, and they failed him so many times when they could have done better with him. That's unfortunate, but again, he's been top star. He's noticeable in the company. He's there, and I'm like, okay. He's got the spotlight on Raw. I don't know what you do with him going forward. Even the stuff with Bray Wyatt wasn't bad, but it's just there's a lot missing to him. There's just still something there, and I just wish that Braun Strowman had somebody to work off of to help build him up, but we don't have that right now. Daniel Bryan, well, he was a 10. The point is right now is that he is obviously stepped away from doing what he's doing. And, he is definitely part-time. But again, you bring him back out there, he's still so solid to work in the ring with. And he's still noticeable, a lot of notoriety, solid. He's about at the AJ Styles level, pretty much. Matt Riddle, they're going to book him as a one-trick pony. This guy's going to be he's the bro gimmick, and I don't know if they're going to want to do something more with him to really build up that character, but I don't see the one-dimensional Matt Riddle gimmick doing much better, or calling him just Riddle. I don't think it works at all. It's not like this guy doesn't work well, but I just think that you're taking him away from what he really is. I don't know. I just don't know if they're going to be patient enough to let Riddle be who he is to really build off of. Kevin Owens is a 7. He's getting worse at the moment. I don't think where he is at the moment right now. I think some of his stuff where he's kind of felt like with the COVID stuff has kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I think just some of the things he's done, it's just, again, but he's worrying about his family. He's a steady job, company guy, steady job. That's what it was. So the fire that was the Kevin Steen character that I really enjoyed when he first came in, that's gone. He's become domesticated. He is just a WWE version of himself. The Ring of Honor Kevin Steen, kill Steen, that's gone. That guy's not that rambunctious, rebellious type of character anymore. He's a family guy, and he's just, making his son proud. That's what he's doing. Jeff Hardy is a 7, but again, that guy's also been up to the 10 in his career, has had some great years, but again, he's been around for a long time. How long can you keep him out there really pushing out so much? A Retribution, it's just nothing there. I can't speak to any of these guys. It's just horrible. Just a shame. Lars Sullivan, I mean, there has been not enough time to really see what he can do on the main roster, so I can't put any kind of score on him as of yet. Keith Lee from NXT, also in the same role as Riddle, 5. And that's just because he's a bit one-trick pony. There's so much more you could be doing with Keith Lee to build up this character. There's more you could add to this gimmick. They're missing on him. They're missing on him really bad. And I don't know what you do, but Keith Lee, okay, he's got a gut. Sorry, Vince, but, that's just big guys are big guys. You think they're all going to be like chiseled and jacked? What do you want? But I guess what Keith Lee needs to do, if he really wants to get accepted, he's going to have to lose the weight. He's going to have to bulk himself up and get the muscle and get the fat off. He's got to get the gut out. Because they're going to keep looking at that, and they're going to look at him as inferior. And that's what he looks like right now. It's unfortunate because he's not. Baron Corbin, 7, he's just company guy, and he's hit his threshold. He is what he is. He is a shit heel. That's what he's going to be. But it's acceptable as a mid-carder, and you know how you're going to hate him, and that's how he's going to be. And he'll always be just like that heel, just sit right there and just be right in the mid-card as you need him to be beaten up. Alexa Bliss, like I said, in the role with Bray Wyatt, she hits up there pretty high now. She was like an 8. And that's just because we like the character. I loved her as a women's champion. She was great. Loved it. Raw Women's Champion, she was awesome. It's just the way they kind of positioned her, and she played such a good heel. Oh, yeah. Face? No. She's better as a heel. Period. So I like her right now, especially in this Bray Wyatt role, playing the Harley Quinn to his Joker. Love it. Elias, man, they just missed the ball on him badly. 3. And I don't know. The guitar thing, I don't know. Just one trick, one-dimensional, does not do. Sami Zayn, 6. But again, him and Kevin Owens, hey man, they're just happy to have nice, good, steady jobs, right? I guess. Lacey Evans, 5. But man, there's just so much more potential to her. They're just missing out. They need to get her out of the whole sassy Southern Belle gimmick that she's still kind of attached to. They need to let her get out of that and become something else. Should, anyway. Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura, but non-factor, by the way. And it's a shame. These two guys, they would be so much better somewhere else. I'll say it over and over. Two foreign stars like this, company doesn't know what to do with them properly. They use them as they like to, but they're being used badly. Sheamus in the same vein. And Sheamus, for his credit, he's solid. Guy going back to the FCW days as well. And, if you got to get Sheamus warmed back up to be near the title, you could do that. But again, they're never going to put him up in the title picture again. And he had a good run with Cesaro as a tag champs. But I think together they kind of built themselves up, but that was all there was. Nikki Cross, a 3, man, just so far removed from sanity. She's just kind of on an island without identity. We talk about Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode, they just kind of bring themselves down to a point. R-Truth, it doesn't make a difference because R-Truth is just good hand, good comedy. He fits a role. Like, he's had his good years as a serious star, but, that was all in TNA. Not so much here. Titus O'Neil is a 1, but obviously he does a lot of the things behind the scenes for them in a charitable role. Carmella, I'm waiting to see what they're going to do with Sasha Banks and see where they go with that. But again, she's about a 6. There's all upside with Carmella. And, splitting her off after the whole Enzo and Big Cass thing for a little while, she still hasn't found her way stepping out of that yet. They're taking the whole Staten Island thing out of her, the fabulous part. They're taking that whole gimmick away from her, making her more glam. I think it'll work for her because she looks great in the new get up, and I think the heel role will work for her well. We just need to see where they go with it. But again, they haven't. We got to see what they're going to do with her and Sasha Banks coming up. Like, they really didn't say much about it on Survivor Series, so we'll see where they go with it on SmackDown, because obviously we'll have Sasha probably celebrating after that, and then we'll see if there's another interaction with Carmella at this point. Peyton Royce, no, she's just there. I mean, she just fits a spot on the women's roster. 4, Aleister Black, dropped the ball on him too. And now because Zelina Vega, is it going to be in the doghouse as a result? Tommy End, that guy should be somewhere else. He could be working somewhere else and be working really well. Like, I would like to see Tommy End over in MLW. God, he would be good. Akira Tozawa, he fits a role where he needs to be right now. That's it. Just fits where he was. That's a look at the roster I have. And again, I look at the talent development and I look based on who they have. Like, Carmella was a FCW. Peyton Royce was brought on. I don't think she ever was FCW, right? Aleister Black was FCW. Akira Tozawa, I think, was FCW. Or NXT, excuse me. Carmella and, yeah. Titus O'Neil, I think, was SC. Well, no, he was the competition NXT. And then Apollo Crews, I didn't make mention of. Another NXT star. Yeah, I think he probably hit the level he was going to hit. But again, I don't know if Wuhan Nation was going to go anywhere else, how big he would have gotten somewhere else. But again, a good place for him to be where he is on the roster now. He's significant. They have given him titles in the mid-card, so at least he's had the run there. And like I said, the SmackDown side, you're seeing it's comprised in the talent development side of younger stars. Some of the NXT stars, they have a chance to still be able to make something of. Meanwhile, the Raw side, they need to find somebody in there to tell better stories, period. Because who's ever running the storylines right now on Raw is doing a horrible job. Next year, that's what they need to work on. I think if you get somebody else there that can actually build stories, because the Raw side needs to be more story-centric. I think you need to go and take a few more stories that you're doing that are not so much ring-centric. Tell some stories, develop some characters. Because I believe that the Raw side is lacking a lot of character development and a lot of continuity as well. And SmackDown's starting to get its audience back. They're starting to build a little bit, which is good. The Raw side's missing a lot. And we can talk more about talent development next week. I want to get into that a little bit more. But for me, it's like we have more to work off of there. And I want to look at what the other companies are doing too. So I want to get back into this next week and get more into it. And I want to get started in talking about the overall year in review as to what we learned about the talent themselves and the compromising of the talent, the makeup of it. I want to go to the other rosters and kind of give my take on that as a comprehensive overview next week. And then once we get through all that, then we'll get into the actual storylines and the stories told throughout the pandemic. I want to get into that next. So that's what we got right now. Part 1, 2020 year in review in the books. We'll do part 2 next week. And again, we'll work on what other things are going on throughout when it comes to it. Unfortunately, I did see the news about Bob Ryder passing away. He had been worked back in the days of WCW and Impact Wrestling. Unfortunate. Also hosted WCW Live with Jeremy Borash back in the day. Age 64. Unfortunate to see him pass away. So that's it there. And again, we'll also do some work about AEW next week as well. We'll talk about that as well coming up. We got some other things going on. We'll talk about that coming up soon as well. Anyway, we'll leave it there. We'll talk to you next week. And until then, come back for another Wrestling is Real podcast because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and on Facebook at Wrestling is Real. Subscribe to the Wrestling is Real podcast through all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. You can also look for episodes on his YouTube channel, youtube.com/JBRASCO951. You can find all this information and more by going to the website, WrestlingIsReal.com.